complicated position.
And there we see
Oh, no,
Ali
he's
Reza. Oh,
unbelievable.
unbelievable. Finding a trick right at the very end.
Unbelievable.
This has got to be the game of the month for me so far. June 2025, it's the FIDE World Team Championships, and with the white pieces here, kicking off with his favourite King Prawn is Alireza Firouzja. He's a French national these days, Iranian-born superstar prodigy, but his opponent so talented as well. Playing the aggressive Sicilian is Nodibek Abdusatorov. He's playing for the Uzbekistan team, Alireza for the WR chess team. Now last year, Uzbekistan had this guy, Vladimir Kramnik, in their corner, fighting a good fight against the chess cheaters, checking all the orifices, going for the frisks, the strip searches, any cavity was not safe. But this year he's not with them. They're on their own, but Nodibek doesn't care because he plays a hyper-accelerated dragon here. He roars like Spyro, and what a fight we get as Alireza takes the centre here. And by the way, the winner of this game wins the match for their team, so there was a lot riding on it. We now see pawn c4, and in the darkness we bind them with this Maroczy bind. We'll have to see how many Lord of the Rings quotes we can get in right. Now we see bishop g7, don't blunder your knight, defended by Alireza, and now this is some razor sharp grandmother theory. It's queen b6. So you put your queen in the firing line of the bishop. I mean, can you not do sort of fancy stuff like this and go for the bishop and everything? Well, no, you just about hold on. Black's doing good there, a little bit better. So no way to take advantage. We see knight b5 played. Does hit the queen, intercepts the attack on b2, check is played, and this knight drops back. If you'd blocked with this knight, well, where's the other knight going after pawn a6? You know, you're going to have to start sidelining it. Not ideal. So pawn d6 now played, bishop e2, Alireza stacking those bishops up, and now we get queen b4. Now this is risky, right? You've moved the queen 1, 2, 3 times. It's move 9. However, this is theory. If you do this at home with the engine, you know what you're doing, you're okay. But this is not to be tried at home without the computer engine helping you. Now we see queen c1 and knight f6 looking so natural. But believe it or not, this is the actual top move of Stock Barnacle. Because you go to exchange those bishops, and after knight takes, black apparently has enough initiative going after this one and stuff to be okay. But really, really odd looking stuff. Alireza doesn't castle, he keeps the bishops on, and just like that, according to the all-powerful engine, things about level, slightly better for black. So the knight develops. Pawn now defended. You could go bishop g4 or castles, but we see this very committal move, not computer approved, and it shatters the structure. Now you don't want to take with the queen here. Because you've got that terrible structure, a lot of the counterplay is coming from the queens on the board. Alireza wants to attack, and in a moment he comes up with a star move. Now first he offers a pawn. Don't take it. That's a trapped queenie. Not ideal. You know, all the squares are covered. You're not getting out of that one. So the poisoned pawn not touch. Instead we see castles played. Quick king safety fist bump from both players. Exploded out. Great etiquette. And you could go pawn b6 now. Bit ugly to block the queen's retreat path, although you can always head this way, maybe. However, you protect the pawn. But Nodibek not interested. He plays the immediate bishop e6, offers a pawn, and it can be taken. There's no point going down the line. There's nothing concrete. You simply give a pawn, you get open lines for the rooks, you get initiative, and you're going to start targeting these ones to win back your material. Alireza not interested. He plays the excellent pawn to c5. Now that's beautiful, because if queen captures, there's a tactical issue. Do you even rook lift, bro? You've once again put the queen in jail, and it drops off the board here. Love that line. And if pawn takes, well, now when you take on b7, you've opened the eyes of the bishop, and you can't hunt the bishop down with knight h5. Bishop's covering the square, you know, the other bishop. So white's doing quite well there. Okay, neither move played. D5 is excellent, the best response. Huge pressure on the centre now. You never capture here. Allow this guy to start hopping. You hit the bishop, you hit that pawn, no good. So Alireza thrusts forward, kicks the knight. You could definitely drop to D7 as a good move. Hit 2 pawns at once. That's the most natural looking move in a way, but Nordebek plays here. Really double-edged because you change the structure after takes, forced, or you'll be much worse. Pawn recaptures here, and now we get queen e3, holding on to the extra pawn. So what does Nordebek do? He does indeed now take the plunge with queen takes on a2. Now there's no queen trap, the knight's left d2 now, but you can force a draw here as white. Just keep chasing the queen with the rooks. However, we first see rook a1 chasing the queen indeed. I was going to say why not take? Well, playable, but then this pawn was getting very dangerous. So it isn't yet played. Queen b3. These couple of moves flicked in. You could have actually left the pawn to advance there, but it's always so tricky trying to determine that. And now we see rook fb1, queen c2, and you could force the draw. But of course, Alireza wants to fight, so he takes with this rook. It's excellent chess. He used that tempo to stay in front of this black passed pawn. You have to be mindful of that, but in the meantime it's Alireza with the initiative, and so Nordebek challenges that open file. You could simply take, rook recaptures, play from there. Let's say you invade with the rook or something, but no, the game sharpens up now with a queen sacrifice. It's rook c1 and it offers this, because after that and that, you've now got 2 rooks for the queen. What a double-edged position. So exciting. These guys love to fight. Queen c2 is a good move. Hit the pawn and then threaten this. Alireza comes to the a file a different way, looking for some light squared invasion. Now we see this invasion to hit the pawn, and queen a4 hits 2 pieces. Looks like you've just blundered, but no. Bishop covers this one. You only have to defend the knight. Done so. Bishop a6 is best, rook c7, then the bishop bouncing back. It's very subtle computery stuff. Alireza simply attacks it straight away, and it actually forces a blunder from Nordebek. What should he do? Well, top line is knight b8, and then you start rotating, I guess, that sort of thing, target the pawns. But we see knight takes on e5, giving a whole piece, but then taking here, and you're hitting a loose bishop, and you're hitting this bishop twice. So you're going to win one of those bishops back. Why is this a blunder? The reason is you can now play the excellent queen d4. And the idea is, if either of the rooks take on b5, you slam down here, and this forces a checkmate. But hang on, what if neither rook takes? What if you block the queen's check with rook d5 first? Well, now you can take here, and similar problems. If you take there, then you're still coming to the back rank and forcing the checkmate. If instead you play f6 to block, well then the bishop drops back. This one can be taken, but now you come in like this, not only hitting that loose bishop, but after it saves itself, you come onto the dark squares, you force black to give up an exchange, and this is better for black. I mean, amazing lines, difficult for humans to find with no time. Alireza instead takes. You can't now take on e5 with the rook. You'd love to pick up that bishop, which is a pain, because you run into this check, losing a rook. So this bishop was taken. Now bishop d4. The rook saves itself, and this pawn drops. I mean, it's absolutely terminal on the dark squares, surely, but rook f5 just saves the day. Covers the key invasion square here, and also counterattacks. So queen b7. And we now get this phase of the game where there's this huge running around the board, a little bit of tickle constantly. Everyone's having a good time. It's all about covering the e-pawn, covering the c-pawn, not allowing checkmating ideas on the dark squares, and it just goes on and on. Move after move, both players burning some clock but holding everything together. It's an absolutely fascinating struggle. I watched the live game on YouTube, not the whole thing but the replay of it. So good seeing these absolute lions battling over the board, and we soon reach a critical moment where one of the players decides they want to fight to the bitter end. We get to here, check, king nudged back, and now it begins. Rook e8, the first. Now we get queen b7, or let's actually count it from here as the white moves. That's 1, 1, 2, 2, 3. So if you bring the rook back, that's a threefold repetition. Either player can claim the draw. But it's Nodebek who wants to fight in this position. What does he play? It's bishop d5. And he now starts bringing that one around, plus the rook. And in just a moment, he generates winning chances, because queen c7's played to hit the bishop. It slides into d3. By the way, if you try f3 to undermine the defense of the bishop, well, you can actually take no time to pick it up, or pawn f2. This is the actual problem. So let's run back. We didn't see f3. We instead saw bishop e5, bishop f1, and it's really forcing a decision now. If you go g3, which is what Nodebek wants, you weaken light squares, the rook can check, stuff starts getting weird. We won't go down the whole line. So instead, we see Alireza make a blunder. His best is actually f3, by the way, forcing takes and takes. But he plays queen c6. Now it counterattacks on the rook, but what he's missed is not just this idea of rook a5 hitting the piece, but after bishop d4, which looks so natural, there's this incredible move, rook a2, and you're shutting this mating net around the white king. The pawn covers here. You know, say you take here, for example, rook e2 wins the queen. Say you don't take, what's the best move? I mean, let's say you try and set up a mate threat here. That's actually a checkmate. Anyway, I'm going to pause the lines there. Wasn't played, but amazing stuff. Instead, we saw rook d8, queen c7 hits that rook. Now it enters via the back rank here. But Alireza is able to set up the counterplay, and things are kicking off because f6 is played to shut out this monster, but it opens the king laterally, and Alireza pounces, starts checking, driving that king from pillar to post, bringing in the bishop now to support the mating attack. And rook e1 check is the way to go. You can set up some perpetual checks, sometimes with the second rook invading, because it's difficult for this king to actually get out the box in many of the lines. Therefore, we see in the game though, bishop takes on g2. And it's a mistake, as you can see, because Alireza can check. King h7, keeps checking here, drives that king all the way into the box. Another check, king h8. And you'd love to bring the bishop in to close the mating net, but you now lose. It's mate in 3. Incredibly, Nodebek has weaved something here. The king driven back, check, and you close the trap like this. Doesn't matter if the king comes here, still can't escape. What a bishop, and the pawn's a pain. Therefore, we don't see bishop f8, but this move, check, king h7, and pawn f4. Watching this live, I had no clue what that was all about. Why on earth are they playing the pawn up the board? Now I understand. It's to give the king a square. And if you take on croissant, well, now it's checkmate in 7 moves, just like this, because the queen can get out, or the king rather. You could have gone to g3 immediately, but whatever. This is how you escape, and there's just nothing can be done. You shut the trap. So this is the beautiful point of f4. So instead we get check. Best move, king dropping back, another check, king e1, and of course we've just discussed this mating pattern which is on the way, so rook takes off that monster sniper, queen recaptures here, pawn e3, and it's not the best, but regardless it was getting really tough for Nodebek because this pawn running, he's opened up the bishop now. We see this queen check, king g8, you could take the pawn, but even stronger is the explosive c4, just push 'em baby, the passed pawns. Now bishop f3 creates this barrier around the white king, dreaming of checkmating ideas perhaps, but Alireza shuts it down with pawn takes on e3, also stops any pawn e2 idea, bishop attacked, saved, Queen e7 back, and he's in full control. The king's boxed, the rook can hardly move, the pawn is running supported by the queen on that c5 square. So what does Nordebek do? One last roll of the dice here with pawn g5, and in this position Alireza blunders. What should he play? Well, actually he should take with the outside passed pawn. Looks a bit counterintuitive, and this is why he didn't do it, because you've given black an outside runner. But here, if say takes, you can now take back and you're all good to go. No issues around the file here, no issues around the king, pawn's running. This one's not an issue, could be checkmating ideas soon. It's just game over. But Alireza takes with the f pawn. Huge mistake. Can you see the winning move? It is, of course, rook e5 check. This pawn was holding that square.
And there we see
Alireza's blundered his queen.
Oh,
Unbelievable.
unbelievable. Queen takes rook.
Oh,
and
he's
Nordebek.
smiling ruefully.
And just like that, the queen has to give itself up. And this is hopelessly lost. Here Alireza resigns the position. Nothing to say. Even if you try and march in, you just create this nice barrier with light squared bishop and pawn. You cover any pawn push here, and this black king is going to march round, pick up the c pawn, and you'll always force that opposition, make your way into d4, because black's got these moves, these tempos that can be wasted with the bishop and everything, right? Lost endgame. Poor Alireza, heartbreak at the end, but incredible fight. Really anything could have happened, especially when neither one wants a draw. And these are the results of the final tournament here in the Rapid. It's actually Arjun Erigaisi's team that took it home. Fair play to them. He had a stormer on board one. Some fascinating games. Hope you enjoyed this video, and have a look at the video on screen in case you missed the incredible Magnus versus Hikaru matchup from Title Tuesday recently. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you soon. Cheers.